This video is sponsored by Surfshark, more on them later. Do you remember last week when I talked about games that are all too familiar with dying? Well, I thought the natural accompaniment to that would be to talk about games where death is actually a massive problem for a more obvious reason. Checkpoints are the sort of thing that you never truly learn to appreciate until they're gone, and if you ever end up playing a game that expects you to get through without making a major mistake, you'll soon understand how valuable checkpoints are. So my plan today is to shift the spotlight over to these ultra hard games that are so reluctant to implement checkpoints and work out how justified this decision is and how it affects the difficulty of the game, because, you know, you could have a game like Journey that doesn't really use checkpoints, but like, would you even notice? You probably wouldn't, in much the same ways you likely wouldn't notice if some sneaky person was stealing your personal online information, but thankfully this video is sponsored by the fine people over at Surfshark. VPNs like Surfshark let you connect to servers across the globe, with Surfshark in particular having over 3,200 servers spread across 100 countries, so you can access international streaming libraries and watch, for example, Japanese Netflix, and feast at the all-you-can-eat anime buffet. Plus, there's of course the more serious applications, since online security is more important than ever these days, and Surfshark can help secure your data with industry-leading measures by using uncrackable encryption and the best VPN protocols around, meaning that you can join public Wi-Fi safe in the knowledge that your personal data is being kept nice and secure. Surfshark is super easy to install and can run on unlimited devices from a single subscription, so you can safely do all your interneting on a massive number of different platforms, and with a 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 live customer support, that's like loads of good things. These guys have even got Surfshark antivirus now, so your devices are extra protected from harm. For an exclusive Black Friday deal, you can go to surfshark.deals/RabbidLuigi and enter the promo code RabbidLuigi to get 6 additional months for free. That link is also in this video's description if you really don't fancy typing all of that out. Secure your connection now with Surfshark. Alright, let's fuck off all the checkpoints now. It may take you a little while, but the concept of failing in a game and having zero safety net should bring you hurtling back to a point in time when everyone in the world was playing Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. It's perhaps one of the purest examples of the kind of experience you cultivate when you take away all of the checkpoints. You don't go around creating a game as vertical as this, called Getting Over It, without a laser-like focus on setting up scenarios where the lack of checkpoints becomes a devastating realization. Progress in this game is painful, owing to the awkward method of moving your cauldron with just a hammer that is used to climb walls and pivot from one perilous scenario to the next. It's as simple as it sounds, and I think its simplicity is part of the reason why it went as viral as the Black Death, with somehow a similar level of pain and suffering. There's no cure for this one. The lack of checkpoints is somewhat understandable given the scope of what Getting Over It is trying to set up as a challenge. The philosophy is laid out from the moment you start the game, and the deadly combination of dodgy controls combined with a game map that is devilishly vertical and a voiceover that is fluent in Japanese, all of this kinda makes it obvious what the game plan is here, and indeed how this game was perfectly set up to enrage YouTubers and streamers across the world. If you were to throw some checkpoints in there, you wouldn't feel the sting of humiliation as you tumble down for seconds at a time, and the infamous orange hell part near the top wouldn't be so obnoxious. The evil reality of Getting Over It is that despite all of your best efforts and all of your perceived progress, there's still plenty you can do to screw up so badly towards the end of the game that you'll almost instantly find yourself at the start of the game again. Diluting all of these conflicting emotions down to simply needing to get over it feels strong. You know, I wouldn't have to if you put some fucking checkpoints in, you know? So there's certain genres where the existence of checkpoints would make absolutely no sense whatsoever. Roguelikes are perhaps the most obvious, since death is more like an inconvenience and you're expected to do so many runs through the game in order to unlock everything there is to see that each individual run is disposable in the grand scheme of things. A slightly less obvious genre would be survival games, where your objective is as evident as you could possibly ask for, and so failing in your attempts to keep a character alive should naturally be met with an appropriate punishment, which is just death, really. So technically, I could fill this video with survival games and roguelikes, but I think it would be boring to watch, so instead I'm gonna pick just the one survival game and move on, and for my money, I gotta go with Don't Starve. If survival games already lay their cards on the table as soon as you decide to play one, then Don't Starve goes that extra inch to ensure that you know exactly what you're getting yourself in for, and from that perspective, it's quite easy to understand what the game is expecting from you. This little guy is called Wilson, and you need to keep him alive at all costs, which in a whimsical world full of strange, hostile creatures, as well as the basic needs of hunger and sanity, is not an easy feat by any means. The sweet thing about Don't Starve is that it's a combination of the two genres that I mentioned earlier, with the world being randomly generated so that you can't rely too much on your experience, and instead you have to make do with what the game gives you on each run. Death is permanent and often embarrassing when it does happen, and aside from a couple of rare items that can give you another go, this is the reality of Don't Starve. Checkpoints would never be appropriate given the high stakes that Don't Starve is attempting to set up, but given how honestly all of this is handled, I don't mind it one bit. It would be a little strange if a game called Don't Starve didn't slap you across the face for letting poor little Wilson bite the dust. You can't say you weren't warned. Modern audiences like to pretend that ultra-hard mainstream games are a recent thing, brought about by the success and popularity of the Dark Souls games. I understand how people arrive at this conclusion, since it feels like the evolution of content creators struggling through video games has given rise to a new wave of challenging titles, but games have been stupid hard for a really long time. You just need to know where to look for them. It took me until I made this video to realise that we haven't had a new Ninja Gaiden game for the best part of a decade, and given the franchise's illustrious history for being so fucking hard that it makes me nervous, the lack of new games kind of upsets me a little. Not as much as Ninja Gaiden Sigma Plus, but I reckon it's close. Years before the birth of the Sigma male, Ninja Gaiden was out here taking names and being one of the hardest 3D games ever made. Any and all of the 3D Ninja Gaiden games are hard as balls, but Sigma Plus stands out for its reliance on save points instead of checkpoints. Now, save points aren't an immediate death knell for your enjoyment of a video game. It's a little antiquated as far as game design goes, but sometimes it can give an extra layer of urgency and it guards against save scumming. Ninja Gaiden Sigma Plus, however, is so brutally hard that save points seem like the wrong sort of way of marking your progress. And in fact, they're spaced so far apart that for large stretches at a time, it can feel like there's no help here for you whatsoever. You die a lot in this game, and I feel like I'd enjoy it a lot more if Sigma Plus was better set up to accommodate all of my dying. But instead, it's just a struggle to get anything done in this game. I've decided I don't want to be ninja anymore. Getting Over It was so popular and such an addictive source of sweet, juicy YouTuber rage that, naturally, it spawned a series of similar titles. I didn't want to include too many games that remove checkpoints for virtually identical reasons, but given how popular this weird subgenre of platforms has become, I thought I should at least include Only Up in this video. Again, the title kinda gives away its design philosophy in a way that half an hour of tutorials could never hope to match, and it outlines your objective in this game as crystally clear as possible. It's effectively a three-dimensional take on Getting Over It, complete with janky controls and a neglectful approach to consistent game physics that are both designed with the very clear goal of sending you plummeting to the bottom of the game world as quickly and as cruelly as possible. These games are strange, and I feel like Only Up does even more to capture the weird relationship that they have with the player. Like, I get the reason why there's no checkpoints. As soon as you start dotting them throughout the environment, the challenge of climbing up this high loses a lot of steam and falling becomes a significantly smaller deal. But at the same time, the devs 100% know how bullshit this is. If it wasn't, you wouldn't have such a real chance of falling down for dozens of seconds at a time and seeing all your progress undone by the tiniest of mistakes. It's a weird deal that you make in your head. You're fully aware of how stupidly this game has been designed, but it makes the potential victory at the end of all of this a humongous achievement. When you're having to fight off bad game design at the same time as the cruel reality of how gravity works, it's the underdog story that makes video games worth playing. Hard to tell if this setup is a deliberate design decision, and considering the devs got in trouble with NFTs and had so many issues with copyright infringement that Only Up was thrown off Steam, yeah, I can see a pattern. Suddenly everything makes sense when you think like that. So, there's another type of game that is allergic to checkpoints, and you can find those during an era when the concept of checkpoints wasn't exactly commonplace. Most games from the early 1990s don't have checkpoints in the traditional sense, partly because arcades was still a significant part of the gaming climate, but also because a lot of the difficulty was borrowed from those same arcade games, and so you still had lives and an allergic aversion to checkpoints. Battletoads is interesting because most of the levels actually do have checkpoints, but before you sharpen your keyboard, the overall structure of Battletoads veers sharply away from anything that might help you when you die. The good news is that the longer levels do indeed have some kind of checkpoint system, so you only need to survive long enough to reach a threshold where you'll be sent to if you die. Before this starts sounding generous though, you need to remember that Battletoads doesn't know how to spell the word generous. Unfortunately, Battletoads is like many games of the era where your punishment for running out of lives is an impromptu reunion with the start of the game, which is nothing special for the time it came out, but where Battletoads sets itself apart is with its incredible, infamous difficulty. You're made of bubbles in this game, and the abundance of sharp objects and even sharper enemies means that the individual lives that make up your reserves aren't worth much at all. You get 5 to start with, and can of course find more, but they disappear so quickly that you never truly overcome that fragility that follows you all throughout a session of trying to play Battletoads. You may have a handful of checkpoints in the middle of levels, but with nothing protecting your overall progress when you hit a game over, it's a brutal experience from back to front. To be fair, I wouldn't have it any other way, and I don't think Battletoads would be this juggernaut of difficulty if it wasn't so unbelievably stingy with the checkpoints. Could you imagine a world where Battletoads was only ever reasonably difficult? And yeah, those are the best games that I can think of that have no checkpoints. Do you agree, or is there something else you'd have at number 1? Let me know in a comment down below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and hit that bell for notifications of every new upload. Last week I talked about games where dying really matters, so maybe you should check that out. And I also want to thank my top supporters on Patreon, including Sarah Mallion, The Green Scorpion, and Scott Riker. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.